Welcome to Brave Healer Productions. It's time to experience what's possible.
What if there's something you haven't learned yet that could change everything? Welcome, everyone. I am Sherry Elise. I am a five-time published author, and I am the host of the TV show Good Morning Joy. And I'm here in partnership with Brave Healer Publishing to introduce you to some of the amazing authors in one of their newest books called The Ultimate Guide to Self-Healing, Volume 6. 25 home practices and tools for peak holistic health and wellness. And before I introduce you to these powerful ladies, first, I want to give a shout out to the lead author of this book, who just so happens to also be the CEO of Brave Healer Publishing, Laura DeFranco. This is volume 6, as I said, and Laura had this download in 2020, which we all know around that time what was happening, to bring together a group of people that can help you. And we are now 6 volumes later. And this isn't just your typical book in terms of just stories. You will walk away with tools in every single chapter. And I'm going to introduce you to 3 of the amazing authors and experts in this book. First one is April Hanna. With over 2 decades of expertise in clinical mental health and wellness, April Hanna serves as the owner of Hanna's Healing Wellness Studio, dedicated to assisting individuals in rediscovering their life's purpose. Kelly Doherty is a clinical social worker, a grief educator, author, and podcast host known for practical, honest conversations about life after someone you love has died. And Dr. Tiffany McBride, Doctor of Shamanic Psycho-Spiritual Studies, is a licensed psychotherapist, creative life coach, and trauma recovery guide, helping individuals heal, navigate addiction, explore identity, and reconnect with intuition. If you all aren't excited by now, I don't know what it's going to take. Welcome to the show, ladies. I am so honored to have you all here. I'm going to just start right off the bat and I am going to go straight to you, Tiffany. I would love for you to share with me the title of your chapter and also talk to me about your why behind writing this.
Sure. So I'm chapter 3. Are you a good witch or a bad witch? Embracing duality through the wisdom of your parts. And my why is, well, I've been in several of Laura's books, but this one is really important to me because I just released a book on alchemy of intuition, and it talks a lot about mysticism and intuition and all that stuff. And so a lot of people can shy away from that. And a lot of times when I talk about how I do my work, a lot of people get kind of like, oh my gosh, who is this person? Are they like weird? And so I really opened up about like what it means to be a witch, which is all about a healer, and then also how we're all witches within ourselves. And I talk about internal family systems, which is parts work. And it's about coming to this place in your life where we have so many different parts of us, the good and the bad. And a lot of times, what we want to do is we want to get rid of the bad. And that's not what we want to do. We actually want to bring it together as a cohesive part of us. Is there's bad and there's good, and they're both valid and need to be heard. And so I take people on the journey of understanding what parts work is and why we have it, and also just how we can start to have more self-compassion for all of the parts that come out of us and the complexity of us as just human beings. So that's a little bit of my why of why I wrote that chapter.
I loved reading your chapter, Tiffany, because I would say, I have known that witches aren't. First, I love, the thing that most people do think, like it's immediately your mind goes to what you learned in fairy tales and all of that and what witches are. And I love that you explained that and brought that to our attention about that. but the sharing of the, the parts of us and relating it to, IFS and just the dark, the light, really sharing with us what that looks like. And I know for myself that when I started embracing the parts that the shadow, the dark wolf, all of that, that life changed for me. And so I know that your book, your chapter is going to be so powerful for people. And I just want to say it was so well written. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Kelly, I'm going to ask you the same question. Talk to me a little bit about your chapter, the title, and your why behind it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me and for hosting all of us. And I'm so excited. We're here with Tiffany and April. April and I do a lot of things together. And I think Tiffany and April and I can talk about a lot of different things based on what she just shared. So I
Yes.
love it. I think that we're all supposed to be together. So mine is chapter 17, Celebrate Their Life, focusing on gratitude, connection, and what still remains. So this chapter, I got pretty personal in it. I've done other Brave Healer books. I was a lead author of The Grief Experience. And this one is a bit of it's different because I talked about both of my mom and my dad's death. And really, I wanted to be able to get people to remember that we can celebrate their life. We can still stay connected to our loved ones even though that they've died. And I think so many times our brain gets stuck on the ending. It gets stuck on the death scene, on the bad moments. Even if we didn't witness it, we've created probably a mental image of what we think happened during that time. And that's what our brain loves to get stuck on. But there's so much more. That's just a moment in time of our loved one's life. And I want to be able to help people be able to shift to remembering what still remains and being grateful for what remains and still being able to keep that connection. And so I talked in my chapter about the shift that I made in my own grief experience. And it wasn't early on. I'm going to be honest. It was many years in, and I wrote a letter to my mom, and something in that letter shifted for me. And I was able to now be able to be like, I'm so grateful that I had my mom for those 14 years. Yes, would I have wanted it to be longer? Absolutely. But I'm grateful that I was able to have that and all that she taught me. Even in her death, she continues to still teach me. I mean, I'm a grief counselor because of it. And I was able to actually talk about my dad. I wrote this almost like a year after he died. And so it was a little emotional and hard, and I still haven't gone into all of that about my dad's quick decline and his death, but I did share a lot in this chapter about his ending. And I think I'm still in this part of my own grief of trying to figure out how do I celebrate that life. I mean, my dad was 90 years old. I'm very fortunate that we had him for as long as we did, but it's never long enough.
Mhm.
And I just want to be able to help people understand that it's okay to have grief and gratitude. It can coexist.
Again, and you're going to hear ladies hear me say this, but they all your chapters, and this was so beautifully written. And on a personal level, I completely related to your chapter. And besides the loss of my father as well, I recently went through the loss with my cat. And we all know what our fur babies are to us. But as I was reading your chapter and you talked about the gratitude coming, it brought me to this moment that I had the other day where I literally, because all I've been doing is crying for my cat, like it's a deep loss. But then there was this quick moment where the gratitude poured in and the smile came, and I was like, and then the next minute I was crying. And so it reminded me as I read your chapter that all this is possible. And what you did so expertly in this is, and all of you did was, you provide us tools. Like, how do you celebrate a life? Like, you could think um, and so can you just share with us maybe one aspect of your tool?
Yeah, so I did have there's a meditation as part of it, and you can go to my website and be able to just listen to that meditation rather than just reading it. But as far as celebrating, I mean, I have a bracelet on that my dad gave me. And so whenever I'm going to be talking about my mom or my dad, I try to wear something that reminds me of them, or that they gave me as a way to kind of keep that connection. Talking about them, right? That's celebrating their life, having pictures of them, maybe making their favorite recipe. Maybe it's doing, April and I did this together last year on Mother's Day. We did a 5K. It's called the Mother Lovin' 5K. And we did it in honor of our moms on Mother's Day. And so being able to do things like that is a way to celebrate their life. But I think one of the most important things is say their name. My mom was Eileen. My dad was Tony, Big Tony, we called him. He didn't know that, but that's what we called him.
Hey, Tony. Big Tony.
And so keeping their names out there, saying those names, and just keep talking about them. It's okay. Even if other people are uncomfortable with it and give you that kind of the deer in the headlights look, like, oh my gosh, they brought us somebody that died. What am I supposed to do? Just keep talking about them. Oh,
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, such great wisdom in there, because we all face grief at some point in our lives. Thank you. April, I'm going to ask you the same question. Talk to us about your chapter, your why behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just feel like, I want to say thank you for having us too. And we're in great company. It's nice to also meet Tiffany. She will appreciate my little sign back here that says, "Not all witches live in Salem." So Kelly and I have been called witches many times in some of the therapy interventions that we apply to people. And they're like, "What did you do? What kind of magic was this?" So it's really awesome to be here with all of you. And so my chapter is chapter 21, the I Am Affirmation Method, a creative path to confidence and fearless living. So my why, basically in creating this chapter, I was going through a really big life change with my business of Hannah's Healing. And my goal with this chapter is to help people realize that their thoughts and their words can affect their reality and also change their body and change their identity. And I learned about affirmations in my early 20s when I first discovered the work of Dr. Emoto's The Hidden Messages in Water. And for people who aren't familiar with that, very quickly, he basically froze water, looked at the crystals underneath a high-powered microscope after the water was exposed to both positive words, negative words, prayer, no prayer, classical music, heavy metal music, and was able to see that the structure of the water was able to create beautiful crystals when it was exposed to love, kindness, positive thoughts, and prayer. And I had kind of a holy crap moment when I read that, like, I better be very careful about what I'm saying to my own body. What are my thoughts all about? And I have been what I consider to be on an I am journey, right? So the affirmation that I'm bringing in my chapter is all about the power of the two words of I am. And I learned about that through Wayne Dyer's work. And so part of that is really trying to be very mindful about the words that you're speaking, how to journal it, how to bring awareness to the thoughts and catch them, and then also kind of step into your power and bring yourself out into the world fully and confidently. Because I have been through many devastating stops and starts in life, and I wanted people to be able to feel the power and confidence that it is okay. Change and death are okay. They are parts of life. They will rock us to the core, and that's usually when we're going to shift. But if we can use some of the science behind what we know about how our neural pathways can change and the neurons that fire together, wire together, and these words that we speak or that we write or that we wear can really begin to change the way that your life is lived. So that is the inspiration behind it. In my chapter, I created a journal that I have on Amazon, Awakening Your I Am Affirmation Journey. And it's a year-long journey, but I give people prompts in how to start the I Am Affirmation Journey and to just challenge them first to recognize and be aware of actually the thoughts that are self-defeating first. Because you have to find them, you have to know them, you have to be aware of them, then taking the journal prompts and then doing some reflection and just really having fun with it to be able to create the best life that you can.
It was also a great chapter, and I found fascinating the study with the water. I'd heard about that with the plants before, but then when you said about we're mostly made up of water, it had a whole new, this whole aha moment. I was like, wow, I hadn't thought about that before. So thank you for sharing that. And as well as the journal part at the end was so great. Again, that actionable thing for people to do and to take part in the I am affirmation instead of just learning about, the idea of it, but to actually put that in practice. So I loved that. I'm going to stick with you for a minute here. I would love to know, why do you think in healing that mind, body, and spirit, the holistic part, is important for someone?
Well, I think they're interchangeable, and I don't think that you can have one without the other. So, we are consciousness. And so, consciousness, in order for it to have an experience here on this earth plane, there's a rule set for the earth, we have to come into a physical vessel. So, we have the consciousness and the soul. The soul comes into the vessel, and then we get to have interactions with other people. And then we have to be able to use our thoughts and our brain and the cognitive part to make choices and decisions and interact with people. And I really don't think that you can focus on one without the other. And that really, when I started to get more into this work in my early 20s, which was great because that's when, I became a mental health therapist and was out in the world. And I was so grateful that the spiritual component showed up in my life and my spiritual awakening was happening then, because combining those aspects with clinical mental health really provides, I feel like, a full treatment for people. You're not just working with the mind. You're not just working with the thoughts. Like Kelly talks about too with death, it's like, we have to talk about that spiritual component. You can't do grief therapy without asking that question. And none of us ultimately really know. Science hasn't told us. Nobody knows what happens when we die. But sometimes we walk around like ignoring the fact that this is going to happen to us, right?
Yeah.
So I really believe all three components, what I've seen in my work and how I've implemented it with clients and students, is that people are given a more well-rounded approach. And I feel like that they're better apt to handle the struggle of what it feels like to be a human being on this planet that is suspended in space and twirling right now. And we're all a little confused about what is going on. So you can't have one without the other. That would be my answer.
Thank you. Tiffany, I'll ask you the same question. And the reason why I'm asking this is obviously this is a book with holistic wellness. And for those who maybe have never dived or dove into it, that this is the perfect opportunity for them. So, Tiffany, I'd love to hear from you. Why do you think holistic is important in the healing process?
Sure, thank you. And very similar to April, like I became a clinical psychotherapist in my 20s, and you couldn't help but bring in the spiritual. And I think that actually when you bring in the spiritual part of it, it really changes things. It shifts things. Like even with internal family systems, a lot of people have very like interesting spiritual experiences as they're doing this internal work, and they're like, wow, I didn't know. And it's amazing because we have so much wisdom within ourselves, and we are our own healers if we can just realize that. And that's what I do with internal family systems, is you're realizing that you can go in within yourself and somatically pick a, which is physical, right? You're somatically checking in with your body, and in your body is holding a message. And a lot of times it's like, for me, a few days ago, it was grief. It was like, I'm grieving in my heart. I was feeling all of that. I'm having blood pressure issues. And so it's like my body's speaking to me. We cannot separate that from the mental, right? That is part of our healing, is we have to be very embodied. A lot of our nervous systems is part of what we need to heal, right? And that's very body-like. So body, mind, and then spirit. We are spiritual beings. We're here to come and learn as spirits what to feel, what it is to feel, to live, to have pleasure, to have grief, to have all these things. And I think that all our messages are kind of the same, where it can be both.
Yeah.
and, right? It can be like joy and grief and pain and anger and like gratitude and yet, having feeling like betrayed. All of it is bringing something to the surface that needs to be heard. And once we hear those things, I think it's a lot of like what Emoto's work is when we can come into those places of the darkness or the hard parts and love them, we're shifting things instantly in our bodies. So that's my little answer for the mind
Yeah.
body soul connection. But yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's so important the way that you just express that, because I think a lot of people think, oh, it's just mindset work, and maybe that's not working for them. And it's like, even you shared in your chapter the way of, connecting to your body and realizing, oh, there's something else going on here, or the spirit aspect. So I think a lot of people can feel maybe that they're not doing it right, or this modality is not working for them, and maybe they're just not combining them all or another one. So thank you for that. I'll ask you, Kelly, and I love that all three of you are like in the science field and and talking about this. So share with me.
Well, they're not separate. Mind and body are not separate. And I think that is one of the biggest misconceptions that's out there. I think thankfully the three of us are all in mental health field that don't believe that, but there's still unfortunately a lot of providers out there that do see that as separate and they try to treat one or the other, and you really can't do that. And when you look at grief, I think one of the biggest things people don't understand is how physical grief is. Grief is not just emotional or mental, right? It is cognitive, right? It impacts our brain. We have grief brain. It impacts our spirituality, angry at God, questioning what comes next. Like April said before, like you can't do this work without asking, like, what do you believe? Because that's the number one question I think we all have. And then grief is so physical. For me, after my mom died, I had a ton of stomach issues. I went to all sorts of doctors, did all sorts of tests. I was grieving. I know now when I'm upset about something, it's all in my stomach, always is, right? I'm an internalizer there. But I think so many people don't realize how somatic and how physical grief is. So it's not just one, right? It's a mix. It's a hot mess, is really what grief is. And, I think every one of my clients has TMJ or jaw pain, from the clenching, right? And back pain or headaches or stomach aches or even just really weird symptoms in their legs. I had a woman, she woke up on the 1 year anniversary of her son's death in a full body rash. And I'm like, okay, if you can't say that grief isn't physical, like, come on.
Yeah.
So there's no disconnect. It's all one. And I think we really need to be able to look at that more and use these techniques that are really looking at all of that. And I'm so glad Tiffany talked about IFS. I love IFS. Personally, for me, it helped me tremendously through some really big things that I needed to shift in my life and has been life changing. So I just want to
Yeah.
encourage people that are listening. IFS really does work and it's amazing.
I love listening to you experts. I say that because everything you've mentioned, I'm like, yep, experienced that, had the stomach pains that I went to all doctors for, did the whole and it's like, that's grief. So
Mhm.
100% connected. We have a few minutes left. I want to ask you, I'm going to stick with you, Kelly, and share with me, what is the most important thing that you want a reader or listener right now to walk away with knowing about celebrating your loved one's life?
Well, first, I want to just acknowledge how difficult grief is, and whoever's listening to understand that your grief is valid and it's real and it's okay to have whatever you may be feeling. But it's also okay to remember all the good and to feel that connection. That connection can still exist. I just have to tell you, I just had the craziest sign happen to me while we've been talking. And I'm kind of like, I'm surprised I'm not crying because I got a little pop up on my computer and it was like, we scanned your computer and we found this many blah, 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 right? Trackers or whatever the heck. And the number was my home address where I grew up on Long Island with my parents.
Wow.
So they're still with us, right? And we can still have that connection know that I got that sign right now, like just reminds me of why I'm doing the work I do. And it is okay to celebrate their life. It is okay to remember the good, the love, because that all still exists. Those love, those memories, all the things you still can connect with. So
Thank
thank
you
you.
so much. Thank you, Kelly. Tiffany, share with me what is the thing that you want people to know, the most important thing about embracing duality with our parts?
What I've noticed in my over 20 years of doing clinical work is self-compassion is a beautiful medicine. We judge ourselves so much, and that is what actually hinders us from moving forward. If we can just sit with our grief or we can sit with our anger and have a conversation with it and realize that everything that we feel is valid. It comes from somewhere. We're going to start to accept ourselves and love ourselves more. And the way that you are internally coming together with all your parts and becoming this family, this support system, it's going to reflect outward. So if you're struggling with relationships on the outside, internal family systems would be amazing for you to start because a lot of times what's reflected on the inside is reflected out into the out, in the world. So if you're feeling like you're stuck or you don't know where to start, IFS is very gentle. It's a very gentle, very good start to wherever you want to be, whether it's trauma healing, grief work, you name it, mental health issues. I think internal families is where you can start to have compassion for every single part of who you are and love that.
Mm,
So
thank
that's
you.
what I hope for.
Thank you so much. And just beautiful. And lastly, April, share with me what do you want people, the most important thing you want people to know about the I am affirmation method?
Well, this kind of goes along with how we started with what Tiffany was saying, and words cast spells. So it's bringing the invisible thoughts into the visible through journaling, through wearing the I am, through speaking, like Tiffany had said, self compassion, speaking words, catching these thoughts and realizing that the power of thoughts, the power of words do cast spells. So, what spell do you want to cast for yourself? What spell do you want to cast to create your life? What spell do you want to cast to, communicate with other people and be in relationship with others? I think people need to understand that our words are much more powerful than they even give them credit for. And so I want people to start being deliberate more in their thoughts, to come more into this conscious state of the present moment, the here and now, and not just kind of like walk around unconsciously and allow these negative thoughts to be broadcast out there in our lives, and really have more of that self compassion. The I am practice is also a self compassion practice. So I say, wear it, write it, speak it, believe it, become it. That's what I'm hoping for people.
Oh, ladies, I'm so lit up right now. Like, I've already read your chapters and I want to go back and read them. You guys, you need to grab this book. Authors, first, thank you so much for what you do in the world and for being here, honestly, to share it with everyone. And to our listeners, this is way more than just a book. This is a hugely generous community who is here to answer any question you have, to carry on conversations like we're having right now, and to support you on your journey. If any of this resonated with something with you, with something we talked about today, make sure that you drop down to the notes below. All of the authors' links are there, and feel free to explore with them. They are happy to connect with you and share what's going on. And of course, hop on over to Amazon, grab the book today. You're going to walk away with so many tools, the links below. And of course, lastly, everyone, the Brave Healer community wants you to remember that your words will change the world when you're brave enough to share them. And it's time to be brave. We'll see you next time, everybody. Thank you, everyone.